Story 1. Goths. When I was in high school, one of them invited me to a party. We watched bad horror movies and made fun of them all night. It was amazing, and they were the warmest, funniest, and most open people I met until I reached adulthood. Story 2. Accountants can be surprising. Once you get to know them and they start to warm up to you, they may do unexpected things, such as drinking a light beer straight from the can. Story 3. People who attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings often face judgments from others. However, in reality, they are some of the most genuine individuals you will ever meet. Story 4. New York City workers and residents. I expected them to be rough around the edges like in the movies, but they were also nice. Story 5. I worked in a kitchen group with the LGBTQ+ students, and it was extremely chaotic and toxic. I collaborated with the popular girls, the type blonde and wearing hoodies. I also worked with the class clowns. However, I always had one failed cooking lab. When I was with the students that nobody wanted to pair up with, I genuinely had so much fun talking to them. They were funny, witty, and we received A's every single time because we all actively worked together. Students who are often labeled as nerds are genuinely some of the greatest people and are passionate about what they enjoy. I dislike that people often categorize them as weird or socially awkward. Many times, they simply need someone else to make the first move. Once you engage with them, you find an amazing friend. Story 6. Growing up in Georgia, all of my favorite teachers were older Black women, and I will always hold a special place in my heart for them. Black women often face challenges that are more severe than those experienced by other groups, though it is not a competition. I believe many people do not fully understand or empathize with their experiences. Story 7. Metal fans are genuinely kind and fun. The best experiences I have had at concerts were metal concerts. I attended a performance by Gojira and Korn by myself and was honestly nervous. The people who sat next to me were cool, easy to talk to, and very accommodating. I will never forget the tall man who moved to the side so I could see. Story 8. The elderly often receive unfair treatment from many, but from my experience working with them for over a decade, I have noticed that they are more open-minded than most people assume. Additionally, they tend to look out for one another. Story 9. The text refers specifically to the United States but acknowledges that not all individuals from rural areas fit negative stereotypes. In my experience, it is often those from suburban and urban settings who display the most abrasive behavior. Story 10. I went to see an Australian punk rock band, Amel and the Sniffers, and I was stripped bare with emotion when I left. I was weeping, but happily so. I have never had an experience like it before in my life. This was a small show, and there was some beautiful synchronicity woven into the night. Story 11. Bodybuilders and gym enthusiasts often create a cultural fear that prevents many people from starting their fitness journey. Many individuals believe that these gym-goers will judge and bully them. However, in reality, they have been some of the nicest people I have ever interacted with, and they love to help others. Working out is their passion, so naturally, most of them are eager to share their knowledge and teach others. Just think of what you are passionate about, and it will click. When I started, I was nervous that people would judge me for the weights I lifted or disparage me for my size. What I found was the opposite. One line I share with anyone seeking advice when starting out is, "You don't cheat anyone but yourself at the gym." I received this advice from someone I became friendly with when he saw me loading on more weight than I could handle and doing half repetitions because of it. In my year and a half of regular gym attendance, the gym goers there have been second only to my family in cheering me on. They were as excited as I was when I finally bench pressed 225 pounds. Story 12. Juggalos. Yes, some may have stereotypes associated with them, but many are people you wouldn't expect. Teachers, scientists, office workers, and so on. They are incredibly kind and supportive. They might seem a bit rough around the edges, but if you need help, they will be there for you. They are both unique and warm-hearted. Story 13. I am a middle-aged Black man surrounded by white middle-aged men. For over 40 years, I have played football, attended college, and worked alongside many white individuals. I have no real complaints. My favorite anecdote about middle-aged white men is that Despite having completely opposite political views, no one cares. For 30 years, I have heard the same questions every Monday morning. How was your weekend? How's your family? How's your mother's health? No one really cares about politics. Sure, we argue about sports and trivial matters, but that's where it ends. Yes, I know it's surprising, right? I may not be fond of their wives, but being surrounded by them has been surprisingly okay. Story 14. Immigrants. No one works harder, and there is no one more faithful than a convert. We need someone to believe in the dream. Story 15. From here in New York, I love Southerners. They get a bad reputation up here. Georgia. My goodness, they are great people. I dislike it when New Yorkers judge others. I appreciate Georgians. They are wonderful. Story 16. Industrial music bands and fans are primarily anti-fascist and generally friendly, contrary to the portrayal often depicted in the media. Story 17. Citizens of hostile countries. Just because governments fight does not mean people do. Chinese people are generally nice and Russians are generally nice. Their governments may be problematic, but the people are not. Story 18. People who display their antisocial tendencies through visible means such as piercings and tattoos are often absolute sweethearts if you treat them the same as everyone else. I have experience in the service industry. Story 19. Transgender individuals are often criticized, but the transgender people I have known are kind and ordinary individuals who simply want to live their lives. Story 20. Before I went to Boston, everyone told me that people there were rude and racist. When I visited, I did not experience that at all. Yes, people can be impatient and are more aggressive in traffic than I am used to at home. Everyone seems to be in a rush, especially in restaurants. However, I found that if you are patient and willing to endure that impatience, people are incredibly kind and personable. There's a saying, people on the West Coast are nice but not kind, while people on the East Coast are kind but not nice. Story 21. Metalheads are literally a brotherhood that does not tolerate hate or abuse towards women, and they know how to have fun. If they knock you down in a mosh pit, they help you up. They are some of the nicest people I have ever met. Story 22. The Canada Revenue Agency is the Canadian equivalent of the Internal Revenue Service. There are many scams where impersonators posing as the Canada Revenue Agency call unsuspecting immigrants, threatening them if they do not pay their taxes. However, actual Canada Revenue Agency agents are polite and helpful. If you make mistakes on your taxes, they will assist you in correcting them. Even if they discover tax evasion, they will inform you of what you owe, often with only reasonable interest fees added. Companies like Intuit and H&R Block profit by promoting their services for handling audits, portraying the agency as intimidating. Personally, I would prefer to deal with the Canada Revenue Agency directly. Story 23. Southerners in the United States are often labeled as racists and evil, but when I lived in New England, I experienced significant racism and classism there. I received more respect and dignity in the Southern United States. Southern hospitality truly is remarkable. Story 24. I came across about 30 fans as I was taking the subway past one of her stadium concerts. They were the nicest people I've ever met, just a ray of positivity. The people who complain about her are much more annoying. Story 25. Older to middle-aged white women. I work with many of them, and they are incredibly nice. They often give gifts and compliments and are genuinely concerned about my day and how I am feeling. Story 26. Wiccans and witches. As with all groups, there are extremists, but overall, the people who practice are not morally bankrupt. Story 27. Skaters. When I first started skating, I was terrified by all the people there. People often associate skating with illegal activities, and while I have seen my fair share of that, the community is genuinely made up of some of the most welcoming and kind individuals I have ever met. Everyone is open to chat and offer help. Story 28. Muslims generally prioritize teachings about helping the needy and their communities more than mainstream Christianity. I live in Utah, and the most compassionate religious groups I interact with here are Muslim, Buddhist, and those following the Krishna consciousness movement. Story 29. Satanists follow typical Western ideals of freedom, autonomy, and love more closely than the Christians they intentionally provoke. Story 30. I live in the next town over from Salem, Massachusetts, and as you can imagine, there are some strange-looking people walking around there in October. A friend of mine used to be a bouncer at a bar in downtown Salem, and every October, they needed extra help, so I started bouncing with him. The bar had a standard area with some booths and tables downstairs, and upstairs it was more of a function hall with a dance floor and a DJ, which opened on Saturday nights. Except for one Saturday in October about 10 years ago, I was working the upstairs area, but instead of being open to the public, there was a private event. It was the local Wiccan community's Halloween party. Now, I'm not one to judge anyone's belief system, but I will tell you it was unlike any bouncer job I've ever had. Instead of the DJ playing music, the room was quiet, and all the lights were off. One of the older women in the group led a chant and some kind of ritual in the center of the dance floor. I couldn't quite make out what they were doing, but it seemed safe, so whatever. A couple of the bouncers were getting their laughs in and making comments about the strange-looking people at the party. But after about 30 minutes, they turned on regular dance music and had a good time on the dance floor. You know what? These were the nicest people I've ever encountered while bouncing. They honestly didn't even need me that night. While most Saturday nights in October, that room is filled with people dressed in ridiculous costumes trying to hit on women in revealing outfits, which often leads to two men fighting, this was just a group of nice people being kind to one another and having a great time. They were incredibly respectful and cleaned up after themselves. Most nights when the bar closes, we stay an extra 30 minutes to clean up. This night, the cleanup took less than 5 minutes. Even though these Wiccans were drinking, dancing, and having a good time, they never got rowdy and never caused any trouble. When the night was over, many of them thanked me and the other bouncers for keeping them safe. Honestly, 10 out of 10. I would bounce at a Wiccan Halloween party anytime. Story 31. Some hobby and lifestyle groups that have faced criticism online for several years often turn out to be not as bad as they seem. Yes, they may have some extreme individuals in their circles, but you can find problematic people in almost any interest group or broad fan community. Furries and Disney enthusiasts can include both unusual individuals and regular people who simply enjoy a hobby. While some behaviors may be seen as cringeworthy, being cringe is not actually a crime unless someone is genuinely breaking the law. Story 32. Nurses. Don't get me wrong, some of them can be difficult and that is a problem, but the mean girl stereotype is highly exaggerated in my opinion. Most are kind and work hard. Patients and family members are often abusive towards healthcare staff and then turn around and tell falsehoods about how poorly they were treated. Story 33. Metalheads are often misunderstood. Many believe they are violent or engage in satanic worship, but most are actually sweet and mellow, with a significant number even choosing a vegan lifestyle. This is completely opposite to the stereotype. I am convinced they channel their aggression through music, which allows them to maintain a gentle demeanor otherwise. Story 34. Honestly, ex-convicts face significant challenges. People often equate legality with morality, but many individuals end up getting arrested for trivial reasons or made poor choices when they were younger, or they were cornered by desperation. The main thing these individuals have in common is that they do not want to return to prison. I grew up with an ex-convict on my street. The entire neighborhood, except for my family, ostracized him. The man was genuinely relieved to have at least one neighbor who was not judgmental. He treated us well. People often say prison is paying for your crime. So it is perplexing that even after serving their sentences, these individuals are still treated poorly. Wasn't the entire point of paying their debt to society to allow them the chance to reintegrate? Instead, we have a system that continuously seeks to ruin the lives of anyone with a criminal record, and that is truly insane. Story 35. Real, honest Christian people who actually read the Bible and follow it and the teachings of Jesus. You can tell who is truly a Christian and who are the less committed churchgoers. I feel bad that Christianity as a whole is criticized because of people who may not even understand the words in the Bible. Story 36. The punk scene is much like the metal scene in being kind and accepting of everyone, but with more emphasis on combating hate. Story 37. Mexicans, especially recently with the Trump administration's propaganda. Sure, there are some individuals who are lazy, struggle with substance abuse, or engage in criminal behavior, but that is true of any other group of people. Where I live, there are many Mexicans, and all of them I have met are the hardest working individuals around. They also tolerate my poor attempts at Spanish, and we are usually able to communicate on a basic human level with each other. I could go on about this, but I feel ashamed of how I viewed Mexicans when I was much younger. I just want everyone to know how wonderful they are. Love you, Mexican friends. Story 38. Norse pagans are often misunderstood, with many falsely assuming an affiliation with white supremacy or clinging to old Christian horror stories of blood sacrifices. In reality, they are open-minded and welcoming. The ones I have met are usually the first to offer help or support to those in need, asking nothing in return. Story 39. Every group of people I have ever met has been nice. Everything negative about people is simply untrue. It's bad stories we keep telling ourselves. Everyone deserves to be treated with positivity first. Story 40. I don't like religious people, but for some reason, I'm drawn to Jewish individuals. I find them so intelligent and interesting to talk to. Story 41. Hear me out, furries. Yes, you have your fair share of cringeworthy moments. Everyone does, but cringe doesn't mean you are unkind. You are some of the funniest, most intelligent, and genuinely friendly people I have ever met. Story 42. They say that metal concerts are full of nice people pretending to be rude, while folk music festivals are full of rude people pretending to be nice. Story 43. The furry fandom is often misunderstood. They are one of the most criticized groups on the internet, but most of it involves people drawing and role-playing anthropomorphic animal characters. The unusual aspects of the fandom represent a small but highly publicized minority. Story 44. Goths are often outcasts who feel a lack of belonging and are usually very welcoming to everyone who treats them with respect. Story 45. Many people complain about refugees and feel bothered by their presence, and I don't understand it. Bad individuals exist in every group, and crimes are never acceptable. Unless someone is stealing food from a large supermarket, people do not steal food out of greed. The refugees I have met are all nice individuals who are genuinely trying to become part of society. Not one of them fled for any reason other than war. They remained in their country and home for years amidst war and danger until they could leave no longer. Now, they are just trying to make the best of their lives while showing care and interest in our culture, including language nuances which I enjoy sharing. You just need to get to know people. Story 46. Heavy metal fans are often misrepresented in the media as unsavory characters. However, the reality is quite different. Heavy metal fans are some of the warm-hearted, kindest, most respectful, funniest, inclusive, and down-to-earth people you will ever meet. While there may be a few outliers, this is true for any subculture. Story 47. Black women are often stereotyped as angry and hostile, while simultaneously being expected to be maternal and extroverted. In reality, we are just women, and most of us are kind to those who are kind to us. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.